Hi, hello, and welcome. I don't know when that went live. I don't know if y'all caught the eye roll or not, because it's fine. Anyway, so after the live yesterday, it has a title now. It's like magic and alchemy, an act of will, and an exercise in control. Um, and maybe we'll just continue to explore it because that's ultimately what it boiled down to. Like after it was over, and it just like sat for a little bit, it marinated for a little bit. It was very like we saw it with the chariot and the it was the hangman. Um and then that three of pentacles, excuse me, with the empress. And sort of at the end when it was like when it was like alchemy is kind of reading like playing God, while magic is reading like whatever else it was reading like. And so with the force of will, you could say that you could say that will, for simplicity's sake, if it's even possible and if it's meant to be whatever, for simplicity's sake, you could say that will is some combination of faith and trust. The faith that something can happen and trust that it will happen. And so, because of that, you don't have to control the when, the how, the where, any of that. And so, you do whatever's for you to do because you're still an active component in whatever way your intuition, discernment, and connection guides you to. But you like surrender everything else. Basically, you allow for things to come in and settle on their own. Right. That's what we saw with the charioteer in the chariot card. There was no like reins or anything, um, just will. And then the sphinxes moved in whatever ways they needed to, just like in that thing, like it's the intelligence of the, excuse me, design of creation being like if there's something that you want, sometimes things conspire in a way to get you there, right? Fateful chance encounters and lessons and all kinds of other stuff that get us where we're going. All we need is will and an openness to sort of like let everything else happen, right? So then I was thinking, like, if thoughts are of the mind and will is of the spirit slash soul, then like determination would be of the flesh or of the physical, because it was like I can see thoughts as like in the domain of the mind easily. And then because of that, I can see will as in the domain of the spiritual easily. But what would be in the domain of the physical? And then, of course, I was like, well, low hanging fruit, it'd be determination. Determination being the thing that keeps somebody going to the gym, um, even on the days that they don't want to, that gets somebody to like get out of bed and clock in, even if they may not want to, that gets somebody to train for a marathon or go through education to get some kind of certification. Like, and it feels like, I guess, bodybuilding training, physical training, is a more sort of direct, I feel like, physical to physical, because you're building up the body, you're building up endurance and building stamina. But I'm like, is that a train? Oh, it is a train. Okay. Sometimes when a train comes by, It sounds like a truck is like pulling in. But then the horn goes off and I'm like, oh, it's not a truck, it's a train. And you think that it, see, there it goes. You think it'd be more distinctly trained. I would think it'd be more distinctly trained, and I wouldn't think a truck is pulling into the driveway. But anyway, oh, the crossing has to be down there. That makes so much sense. Because even yesterday, I had a quick thought. I was like, why does it blow the horn? Like, I see it go by, and then minutes later, I hear the horn. But if that's where the crossing is, then that's where it would make it sound, obviously, right? It's not blowing the horn every time it passes by a neighborhood. Anyway, cool. So yeah. So then will is, you could say an act of, not an act of, it's related to the spirit. And I think will is, I don't know, it just like it made so much sense. Cause I feel like there have been, I think I talked about it on this channel before. Maybe. I feel like there are times when I could say, I'll phrase it like this. There have been certain times in my life, in certain specific scenarios and situations in my life, where it's been a lot easier to manifest a certain outcome and to be certain that that manifestation would come to pass, right? Like to know that something will be. And I feel like also when it comes to will, depending on what the scenario or situation is, um, there may be like a contest of will, right? And maybe the stronger will wins or the dominant one. And it's like if the divine, I would imagine that if divine will is moving in a certain way, scenario or situation, then personal will would, like, you have free will, but just because you have free will, I don't know. It's almost like if something is like free trade, right? Then you think it's like something is free trade and someone brings in, I don't know, the junk drawer stuff and they're trying to get something super expensive. And then they're like, well, it's free trade. So I should be able to trade whatever I have for whatever I want. So if I want to trade some pocket lint for a brand new Ford Focus, is that are they still making those? I don't know. It's just the first thing that came to my mind. If I want to trade pocket lint for a brand new Ford Focus, I should be able to because it's free trade. So I can trade whatever I want and get whatever I want. Anyway, um, and since it is again, so the components of will, it feels like it could be obviously infinitely complex, but a certain part is faith and another part is trust. I feel like there would also be other, so as I was kind of thinking about this too, right? Um, where there is alignment between will and thought. Because as I was sort of like thinking about that alchemy and magic in terms of what is accomplished by will and what is accomplished by the application of some kind of knowledge to bring about a certain specific outcome and conclusion, they didn't necessarily feel like, it felt like there were plenty of scenario situations and cases where the thing is like big enough that you could employ both, right? You control and work on the things that you can control and work on. You have your vision in mind, and then you just surrender and you open yourself up to collaboration, right? And so I feel like it's a different kind of surrender, maybe than the surrender that we're usually used to, or rather than the surrender that I feel like how like process it when I hear it. And, but again, it's just like doing what you can. But I feel like when it comes to manifestation in general, or even surrender in general, they're almost like complete. There's sometimes maybe not necessarily a whole lot of room for the other. Kind of, sort of. I think it's also like developmental, right? It's like will would be that higher currency that I was talking about yesterday. And it came out under magic, right? Um, where it's worth a lot, but it is rare. I guess like a lot of things that are worth a lot are rare, right? It's like how I would assume that platinum is worth a lot more than gold. Gold is worth a lot more than silver, but platinum is like is more rare than gold is. And part of its value is that rarity. It seems like part of gold's worth. I feel like gold is interesting because it is incredibly like lustrous. Like it looks pretty, but I feel like it also has a lot of like practical and valuable applications through different stuff. If you ask me what they are, I think it's like conductive and like they use like there are practical applications. And I guess maybe it isn't necessarily extremely abundant. I don't know if it's like diamonds where they control the supply basically. And they use that control of the supply to set the prices, make them a luxury item when they're like pretty common, or when they're more common than um, their inflated value would suggest anyway. So yeah, I don't know if I'm using cards today. And then I started to like, because as I'm thinking about it and as I'm processing it, I'm like, is this something that I just like? Because I don't necessarily mind like going live, because I feel like things resonate for me how they resonate for me, just like they resonate for anybody else how they resonate for anybody else. And just because they resonate for me a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that it's for me to come on and like do a unpacking or whatever of how it's resonating for me. Um, Especially when it comes to certain things, because it may not be helpful or it may not be as helpful or beneficial as it may not be as helpful or beneficial to others if they already have how the original thing resonated for them and they're already sort of processing it in their own way. But because I was like, I put it in the title. And I was like, but I don't necessarily have to go live just to say, oh, that's, I guess, when I can make a community post. Anyway, just to say, like, whoa, you know what I mean? But as I was like thinking about going live, I even asked Siri, I was like, flip a coin, please. I think it can be beneficial for us to continue to break down and to think about, because I think sometimes, cause, and I'm still like processing it and having this internal conversation and dialogue, because I feel like will is so interesting. I guess kind of like thoughts, not entirely unlike a thought. It feels like, you know how sometimes something gets in your head and you don't necessarily know like where it comes from, and like you have a thought, right? And I know like sometimes if you like, there are some people who, you take in information, you process it, and then you have thoughts, and then you talk to whoever you talk to. So sometimes you could tell somebody like, hey, like I had this thought, like what if blah 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 blah, and the person is like, yeah, I told you about that like 2 weeks ago. What do you mean you just had this thought? We've already had this conversation. And I feel like when it comes to will, it's so easy. I think more so than a thought. Actually, now that I'm actually thinking about it, I feel like when it comes to will, it's so easy for us to, and I almost like want to tread lightly, but I feel like it's so easy for us to champion someone else's will, even if that will is God's will. Because sometimes, I'm not going to say a lot of times, sometimes what we think of as God's will is a Hierophant's interpretation of what God's will is, or how someone interprets what is written about what God's will is. And there is so much humanness in the mix when it comes to that. It's like that's when it can be more beneficial for you to have your own personal relationship with the divine. Because sometimes, and it's like even with divine will, God's will, it's like it doesn't necessarily have to be this uniform thing where it's not necessarily the same for everybody, or it's not necessarily to be interpreted the same for everyone, because God's will moves through everyone and everything to accomplish different things. And it moves through everyone and everything in different ways for different reasons and for different purposes and under different conditions being alignment, like what someone is like wants to do, is capable of doing, has a gift or a talent to do, and also it sort of needing to navigate around their own personal challenges, struggles, tribulations, traumas, and stuff like that. Right. If someone has a terrible fear of heights, then you're probably like God's will probably wouldn't. It's like it would be easier to move to and through someone that doesn't have that fear. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be pushed out of our comfort zones, because obviously, like it's also for us to learn and grow. But like if you don't have a talent or interest or whatever for something and someone else does, who is also like able to receive and has the resources and whatever, like why, you know what I mean? And so even with that and in that way, sometimes again, we take an interpretation or however whatever falls feels like alignment for us, and we operate under that will, not even our own. Excuse me. And it's not, obviously, it's like our will can align with the divine will, or a divine will can operate and move through us, but it isn't necessarily always what someone else tells us what it is. Now, there are some people that have a gift and an ability to help others discern what that will is for them or to be a guide along their journey. Some people have that gift. Some people have a gift of discerning gifts, right? But I think that more so than a thought, because it's almost like it's curated, right? Like someone received a message at some point for whatever reason they received it, right? For whatever in whatever time and in whatever environment they received it in. And then someone else made a choice or decision to include in the compilation of works, to include that someone had to translate it. Someone read it, and if like that person is a pastor, minister, or an equivalent, a priest or an equivalent, then it's like their interpretation of the thing that now other people, like masses of people, are taking on. And so it's almost like it could be easy for the original intention to be lost and all of that. But like you can always go to the source, right? It's not like I feel like when it comes to religious leaders and prophets across time, as they have, gone about their afterlives or whatever, those people are lost to us. But the original source is like there. You know what I mean? Like the divine is still there, God is still there. So, anyway, and I feel like that's something else because I know when Break My Soul came out by Beyonce, I admittedly, I'm not like the hugest Beyonce fan. I'm not the hugest anybody fan. Me and music have an interesting relationship where it's kind of there when I want it and need it. And otherwise, we can go a very long time and miss each other. So there are like obviously some songs that I love, and Break My Soul was one of them, right? And I'm pretty sure I told my number one fan about it. And she told me about someone that felt a certain type of way when Beyonce said, I'm building my own foundation. And it was like, the divine, Jesus, God should be your foundation. And I feel like to me, it's almost like the divine is a material that you build a foundation with, not to be like kind of usy or whatever. But in my interpretation, it's a material to build a foundation with. Just like divine will, God's will is like a component of our individual will, but we have our own individual will. And sometimes I feel like in day to day moments, it's almost like it's the life, it's living in between. I don't know. Obviously, there are people who are positioned to be more of an instrument, more of a resource, more of a tool to be used for that divine will to be carried out through. And then there are others who it's not necessarily all the time, every single day, right? And for the not all the time, not every single day people, it's like, there are things that we still do, there are lives that we still live outside of those moments, right? Like even the pastor or the priest, is alone when they go to sleep. You can go to bed next to someone and in a house full of people, but when your eyes are closed, it's just you. And the I don't know. And I feel like that so neatly plays into that whole because I feel like again, free will is free. And so it's so it's so widely available, but it's almost like at the same time it's such a precious commodity, because how many of us have a will that is truly free and a will that is truly our own? Or how many of us can truly recognize the movements of divine will outside of what we've been taught, told, or what we get from some kind of like writing? And so again, it just feels like it becomes incredibly easy for us to not even have our own will, or to not exercise our own will, but to feel like we do. Excuse me. Just like how you can think your own thoughts, but if you've been indoctrinated into whatever, if then the thoughts you think are heavily influenced by whatever you've been indoctrinated by. So you're thinking what you were kind of sort of taught to think. Thinking your own thoughts, yeah, but with a mind that is not, we can think our own thoughts with the mind that is not necessarily our own. So anyway, maybe that's it. Hey Google, flip a coin, please.
It's heads.
Excuse me. I said flip a coin before I even. Okay. So we're going to pick a number between 1 and 4. I'm going to ask Google if it can roll the d4. 1 and 4 is we're done. No. One, how am I doing this? One and done. Two is cards only. Three is program only. Four is cards and program. Because I don't know if I'm going to use the program or if I'm going to pull cards, or if we're just, if this is it. Honestly, I feel like this would probably just be it. Um, and I feel like even in that, there are so many, like with the spiritual sensory deprivation tank energy that was the Archangel of Healing. I feel like that was like Feb, Feb, March, early, had to be 2020. Had to be early 2020. It could not be, but I feel like it was, when it was like, we would go into the spiritual sensory deprivation tank, and then we would just sort of like dissolve. Like all of our thoughts, all of our, like the will just entirely broken down, to see what is us, what is ours, and what is not us, what's been instilled in us, what is, it's almost like, in general, not anything specific. It's almost like if indoctrination is a program that you download, then sometimes it's like it's not necessarily the program that's glitched or the program that has bugs in it, but it's like somehow you can download it and like pick up viruses. I guess it's kind of like reading a Wikipedia page, especially the ones that are open access. Anybody can go in. I'm sure the process has changed, maybe. It's like AI in the beginning, right? When Google was first rolling out all the AI stuff and people were feeding it BS. And so it would give misinformation. It's like, so it's like, yes, the information is by and large accurate and true, but it's like it's possible to get either like sentences, phrases, words that don't quite translate, and so they get mistranslated or dropped entirely. And if it gets dropped entirely, then it's almost like it changes the framework of the situation. So there may be some key part of like I saw Michael the other day, right? And what I loved about the movie is it's kind of what I liked about weapons at the same time. With weapons, it was a little bit more in your face. But I feel like in Michael, there were a lot of like little things that were said. And so it's like if you listen or if you're paying attention in the movie, when other stuff started to happen, you knew why it was happening. For example, I guess spoiler alert, question mark? Not really. But kind of like because it's known that he had worked on his nose a lot. He had a lot of different noses and no shade, obviously, but it's just like it's known. But in the movie, when he's a kid, he says something to Joseph, and Joseph is like, he calls him Big Nose. And so then he's like, when he gets the first procedure done, he's like, I want my nose done so it's more symmetrical and it looks better in the pictures. But it's like with that, and we only see it in the movie one time. Who knows how many times it came up? It's like that created like this seed where it's almost like his nose was always this thing. Like that's the way that Joseph would kind of sort of like that's the hook that Joseph had in his mind. And if he ever felt like not perfect or not good enough, or just like wanting to really be like chasing perfection, and I'm pretty sure he was a Virgo, so it's like it would always go back to the nose because that's the thing that was pointed out. Uh, and so it's almost like that. It's like a little seed that kind of spirals into a lot of other stuff when we're sort of going through that indoctrination process. An indoctrination process is just it could just be like learning, right? And two, when we learn from people, nobody's perfect. I try to be cognizant of it, but I also anyway, when we're learning from people or listening to people, we don't necessarily have the ability to completely remove ourselves from a thing, or it's to various degrees, right? So sometimes it's something that could be for somebody, or it could be like where we are in life at a certain point in time, right? What our understanding is at that point in time. Excuse me. And as we learn and grow, like our understanding should deepen, if nothing else. And as it deepens, then maybe it evolves and it changes, and we see things in a new way and we understand more because we've learned more. Anyway, hey, Google, roll a d4.
I rolled a 3.
A three. Three was program only, which is what I was kind of leaning towards anyway. But now the question is which one? Which one do I do? We'll do this one. Right. Excuse me. Yeah, we'll do this one. Ah, that's the one thing I don't. It's fine. I really want to. I feel like. I feel like it's not gonna take long. Wait. No. Crap. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I really want to do like three cards with both of them, but I guess I can just roll it multiple times and try to remember. Um, but yeah, and it's so fun because it had to be. I was talking with my dad. We were talking about something, and he was talking about Moses, how Moses got a little too full of himself or whatever. and tried to force an act of God and then was punished for it. He was like, "You," I forget what we were. It had to be like a movie. I don't know. I can't remember how it came up, and I don't remember why it's here now. Maybe it's the, and it feels like that's also like will is. I feel like will is incredibly delicate, and so by and large, it's just like alchemy is safer. Especially, I feel like at this day and age when a lot of things are a lot more thoroughly studied and information is like more widely available than it wasn't like when people were just discovering it. Like Marie Curie didn't necessarily know that the plutonium question mark was killing her through radiation when she was showing it off at all her dinner parties. Like we learned, just like for some of the older folks with cigarettes and vapes. Right, for the people that was like, well, when we were younger, or we know that when people were younger or back in the day, they didn't think that cigarettes were as deadly as we found out they are. So you may want to chill on the vapes until we know a little bit about like how they actually affect the body. Um, but yeah, it feels like will is delicate because, like, not only in that is our will our own, and just because our will is our own doesn't mean that it is completely separate from the divine in whatever way. Again, I feel like just, and it feels weird to say that the divine is a material to build a foundation with because it feels it's like a little not like usy. But it's like it's more so the image of it than it is the words. It's like, right, if we're building our own foundation, we can build that foundation with the divine. Like the divine is a material we can build with the lessons that we've learned is a material we can build with knowledge and information. Usually that we trust, and knowledge and information is a material that we build our foundation with, and we also put a piece of ourselves in it. Just because we're building our own foundation doesn't mean that the divine isn't involved somewhere in that process. And just because we may act with our own free will doesn't mean that it's just like with free speech, right? Anybody can say anything. Okay. Uh, the idea, what I imagine the idea behind free speech to be is anybody can say anything and not have like federal legal repercussions because of it. If you don't like apple pie, you can say you don't like apple pie and no one is going to arrest you because you say you don't like apple pie. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have apple pie lovers being like, "Oh my gosh, why don't you like apple pie? Apple pie is amazing." Everybody, you just haven't had the right apple pie. Like if you have my grandma's apple pie, she will make an apple pie lover out of you. You think you don't like it doesn't mean that you're not going to get a response to like your opinion, right? And so with free will, I was going somewhere with that before the derailed that train. um, it's something like with free will, it feels like because maybe it's because will is of the spirit and it feels like there's like a you could say I guess a lot of tension and the spiritual tension, not necessarily like on the spiritual plane. If it's a room, it's a very crowded room that's playing like very loud music. Or you could say it's a room where someone is like speaking on a microphone with like giant speakers. So to be heard, it could be very difficult, right? Because there's the divine intention behind creation, right? And just like how things work, there's the divine will, like a more active divine will that is moving to have certain things come to be, or it's moving to support certain people or certain things in certain ways. There are not so great intentions that you could say are like devil energies that are kind of sort of like, or chaotic forces that are working to tear down things and to cause division and all kinds of other stuff. And so it's like in the midst of all that, then like to sort of enter that space, it's almost like if a bar is really busy and there's already people in front of you. See, this is what, okay. I didn't go to a lot of bars. I went to bars on Wing Wednesday and when they were giving out free t shirts. I go for free stuff and food mostly. But it's just like it's so like loud and there's so many people and it's so crowded. And I went with somebody and they're like, yeah, you just if you want to drink, you have to go up to the bar and get the bartender's attention and like get like because I would go up there, I wait in queues. So I'd go up there and like people would be served, and I'm just like standing there waiting for my turn. And then like other people would come up. My friend was like, if you want something, you have to speak up because otherwise they're going to go wherever. And so it's almost like that, like will and engaging will is like going up to a bar when everything is crazy and like things are happening and it's whoever gets the attention of whatever that gets, you know, served. Obviously there are like degrees and levels to it, but um excuse me, I don't. It feels like it can be a difficult space to navigate. Honestly, it feels like you can get a smackdown too. So, again, thoughts, and I think that's not like the appeal of alchemy in this magic alchemy transmutation creation generation or like Genesis energy. But it's almost like since it's just it's like baking a cake. It's a process, and if you do the process, it's gonna work. If everything goes according to plan, if your ingredients are still fresh and if you mix them well enough and if your oven isn't busted or if your heat source isn't inconsistent, like you're gonna get a cake. And different ingredients have different qualities, and so it may not necessarily taste the exact same every time, but you can get a pretty good cake if you have a great recipe, good ingredients, and equipment that works. So it's not like if you can make your own drink at home, right? You get the recipe, you buy the drinks, and you do your own mixology. You're your own bartender versus going to the bar, paying for those upcharged drinks and fighting with all of the other people trying to get a drink to get the bartender's attention to get your drink. It can be easier. Um, yeah, I feel like there was a whole thing I was gonna. It's fine. It's gone. It's gone now. I guess we'll do this first. I don't know, 513. I'm not even gonna, I don't even know what to put here, so I'll just put 513. We're doing the random dice roll program because this is the one that has the Fable Makers and the Diceology cards. I feel like I feel like at this point, it's not that I'm not motivated to build out the other programs, but it's just like I don't think about it until I'm about to go live. And I'm like, I wish I would have done this because it's fine. All right. Do 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 do. Bo 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 bo. Boo doo doo doo. Where is it? There we go. Cool. So this is where we are. 513. We're gonna get a roll for all of them, and let's just go for it. Wow, we got null on the D8, the D6, and the D4. On the D100, we have Aries, the Ace of Souls, the Seven of Zones, excuse me, and Judgment. On the D20, we have the High Priestess and the Star, and on the D12, we have Cancer. Oh, oops. I guess that's the thing about OBS. Like you have to keep the window open if you're doing a window capture. So if I minimize the window instead of just like, bringing something up in front of it, then it'll minimize on the screen too. Okay. The Seven of Zones is the space of the Seven of Swords. And we saw the Seven of Swords. Yeah, we saw the Seven of Swords yesterday. I feel like it actually came out with the High Priestess at the cut. But as I mentioned in the Wild Unknown Tarot, the Seven of Swords is my card of birthright. The Ace of Souls in Aries could be the image of the creator or the spark of the divine that we all hold within us, right? Will, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. There was light because the divine willed it, right? We're made in the image of the creator. If all the things and that Jesus did and more we're capable of doing, it's like a piece of that is will because we have free will. Now, is the will strong enough to interact with all the things that it needs to interact with to produce whatever we're seeking to produce? That's a question. Sometimes, anyway, it feels like Aries is the baby, the Ace of Souls is the spark, the Seven of Zones is birthright, and Judgment is a question mark for now. The High Priestess and the Star. We just saw the Star yesterday. It was a final card, one of the final three on that Queen of Wands on the side of magic. It was the Star, the Eight of Swords, and the Seven of Wands. And it's funny because so I had this thought before. I didn't necessarily know where to take it. And then I feel like I tried to explain something and then got lost on the tangent and lost the other point I was going to make about like free speech. There was some parallel free between free speech and free will where like you can will whatever, but just maybe that's it. Like you can will whatever, but just because you will it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be right. And maybe because again there are competing wills, there are, and maybe it's a good thing. You could, I'm sure there are very strong arguments for why it is an amazing thing that things aren't just as we will them to be, especially in whatever emotional or volatile state or situation we can find ourselves in or others may find themselves in. I hear sirens in the distance. It may be a fire truck because I thought I heard a horn, but like in the distance. And it's funny because like the kitchen windows are the ones that's open. So that sound traveled down this little hall into here. Anyway, um, the Star, the Eight of Swords, and the Seven of Wands was an energy of being. And it went back to that. And again, it came to my mind. I was like, I don't know what to. It is also interesting that we have the high priestess and Cancer. The high priestess corresponds to the moon, and the moon rules Cancer. The high priestess and the star, because the moon rules the high priestess, it makes me, I'm playing through Diablo 4 and there's an eclipse, right? It makes me think of that whole, like, if we follow the movements of the moon, if there is a practice that follows the movements of the moon, then there are going to be times where those practices are done during the day because the moon is in the sky primarily during the day. And because it's in the sky during the day, it's not in the sky at night, new moon. You don't see it because it's not there at night, right? Kind of, again, with the cosmology and the astrophysics of it all, with the specifics, we take it as it resonates. My brain operates in metaphor. It doesn't necessarily have to be literal to make a point, right? There are works of fiction that have a moral or a lesson, or like to, you can teach something through fiction. It's not necessarily about the thing being real, it's the purpose for which the information or the story is told. It's a metaphor. But there are times that we do see the moon during the day, right? And so to see the high priestess that's ruled by the moon and then the star here, the sun is a star, it's our star. Maybe at that point it becomes a day star. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like Aries, Ace of Souls, Seven of Swords, or Seven of Zones. Okay. Low hanging fruit, meaning there is a way to read this where Aries, again, is us, the baby, humans. What, in terms of like, I feel like we've really maximized fulfilling our potential as humanity in certain arenas and maybe not necessarily as much others when it comes to like the realm of thought and science and technology, yeah, but maybe when it comes to other arenas and aspects, even I feel like in the realm of like creativity, there's also been a lot of strides made in that arena. Culturally, there have been different cultures that have made different strides in different arenas. Maybe it's like there's a lot. We are like babes. That's Aries. The Ace of Souls again is the part and piece of the divine that is within us. The spark that we carry, the Seven of Swords, Seven of Zones, is that birthright energy, judgment. It's almost coming through as an evaluation, right? So it's like if we were to take this will thing where we use will more and we like build it like a muscle, right? You have your intuition, your discernment, and then your will, among many other things. It's almost like if will can do stuff for us, then judgment is the process of us. It's like in a not probation, maybe probationary, evaluatory. I'm like, I have the word. I'm like trying to sound it out. A valuable, a value. It's that L that's throwing me off. Evaluatory, like to evaluate. It's this evaluatory period, a period of observation. Goodness, it's this observation period where it's like it's seeing how we use our will and what we will into being. Right. And it's almost like, because if I feel like the thing about some Kirsty, hey, how you doing? You came. I feel like every time you pop up, I'm like, you came to my mind the other day, and I should have reached out. I mean, I'll fill you in. I feel like life is starting to like spring has sprung, and so many things are popping up in the garden. But great things. We're hoping for great things. How you doing today? So it's like, it feels like, hey Holly, how you doing? It feels like when, because when and it's judgment, right? If you know that someone is going to do something, let's say something not catastrophic, not anything that you would have to intervene in or on, right? Someone's just going to do something that's not so great, but it's not so bad that you have to stop them before they do it, right? So if you know that someone's going to do something that's not great, you can't, it's like justice can't rule before they do the thing, because otherwise they haven't done it. And they would have the excuse or the reason of like, I wouldn't have done that, right? Um, and so that of like observatory, evaluatory period when it comes to the exercise of will is so that it's like there's enough data and information gathered to make a determination on whether more is revealed or whether there's some kind of restriction that comes into play, right? If you are an excellent user of your free will to do whatever, and the divine's like, hey, like your will aligns with what I want, or your will aligns with like what's going on over here, would you like to collaborate, right? It's an extension of collaboration potentially. And it feels like the high priestess and the star, it's almost this like, it's like, I feel like it's metaphorically, it's easier to sort of see and understand when it comes to someone who would use their free will to do not so great things, right? Because metaphorically, you can't prosecute someone for a crime that they haven't committed. So you have to wait for them to commit the crime before you can prosecute them for the crime. Because if you, again, prosecute prematurely, they haven't done it yet. And they could say or think that, like, oh, I wouldn't have done this, right? Or I'm not like that. And it was like, but you already have. You can tell me that you wouldn't have done it and blah 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 whatever, but you've already, like, it's like you've done it. It's already done. What are you talking about? But instead of it being like a punishment thing, it's like a rewarding thing, because it's like, for example, inheritance, easy. It's like, let's say that in someone has the freedom to become whoever they want to be, right? And there is like a family business or something that someone would love to have one of their kids inherit, but they don't want to force their kid to follow in their own footsteps. And so when the kid shows an interest in it, and when the kid has talent in it, again, you're not going to do that handover prematurely. Even if someone has the talent and the knack and the desire to do something, if they don't have the capability of like running it, then you wouldn't give it to like a 5-year old just because they have a lot of talent and a lot of promise, right? You would probably wait, like you would let them have a childhood, right? And then you would let them do whatever they want or need to do before you sort of give them that responsibility. But you sort of recognize early that this, like, that they would be a good match for this and that they'd actually want to do it. And it feels like that's, especially with the high priestess going into the star, that's what sort of tends it more towards the positive, right? But sometimes there are things that we have to go through in life. Will, you could say, is like a spiritual muscle that you have to build. I would feel pretty confident in saying that will is a spiritual muscle that you have to build because wills can be broken, right? You could do the surrender thing. I don't necessarily. Wills can be broken, but they can also be strengthened. Like the more you do something, the more you know how it's done, the more you get in the habit, the it's like, because a part of will is trust. And even if you trust somebody with your life already, it's like that trust can deepen and the trust can be reaffirmed as that person continues to show up, right? Or if you're like panicking, like, oh my gosh, I am in this situation and I need someone like to help take care of this. I need to offload this because I got too much stuff going on right now. I trust you. Like, can you do this for me? And the person's like, yeah, oh my gosh, of course I would love to. And then they exceed your expectations. And you're like, I already trusted you, but like I like, it deepens. And so because trust is a part of will, and also because faith is a part of will, if faith is the I know the divine can do this, then the more the divine does, the more we know the divine is able to do. Right. So let's say, for example, there's a situation that we find ourselves in and we don't know how we're gonna whatever. And it's like almost like, yeah, I feel like you can have more trust than you do faith. And I feel like it's kind of iffy. Um, I want to say you can have more trust than faith because it's like, I know, like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I know I will. I know the divine is going to see me through this. I don't know how. And I'm still like, kind of worried, but I trust that I will make it through this. And then in the fulfillment of that trust, maybe that builds faith, right? Like with the the size of a grain of the mustard seed moving mountains, like when it comes to that mountain, maybe you think you'll get in like a helicopter and fly over the mountain, or you'll find a river valley that cuts through the mountain. And so, like, you have the trust that you will navigate the mountain, but your faith may not necessarily tell you that the mountain will be moved until you see the mountain moving before your eyes. And you're like, wow, I thought I was going to go like over it. And I thought I was going to have to go around it. Turns out I ain't even got to go through it because it's been moved. Anyway, it's like someone was always meant to be this star. That's why I'm leaning towards like that inheritance because the high priestess is with the star. It's like it was always known that someone would be a star, but they had to become a star. Right. Because the star, it's like there's a lot more to being a star than one would necessarily think. And I'm not necessarily talking Hollywood, but I'm sure that the Hollywood stars would let common folk like me know, like stardom and fame is a lot more than just like, I don't know, whatever. You got to do this and you got to do that. And you have to consider, like, even with the things that you put your name to. For some people, it's just a gig to get some money. For some people, maybe they really stand by the things that they represent. They only appear in commercials or advertisements for products that they genuinely use or believe in. Or they're not going to let their name or likeness be used to sell something that's not whatever, right? If someone really loves animals, then they're not going to be modeling the fur whatever. And they may not necessarily, show up and try to stop it, but they're not going to be the face of it either. And you can say there's a certain amount of integrity. You don't have to have it when you're a star, but it's very much so the energy of a person that has a platform that wants to use it for the right reason. The right reason. They want to use their platform for what they want to use their platform for. Anyway, because it feels like the star represents so many things, right? There's the North Star that is the guide in the night. There is the shooting star that is the receptacle of hopes and wishes and dreams. There is the shining star that is a light in the darkness, that is just bright enough to get you through the darkest until the sun rises again. Right? A star is so many things beyond what we know or see the star to be. And some of those things the star would know until they know. And then it feels like cancer sort of represents the intuitive, sensitive part of us. So if there is a high priestess that is the divine that knows, then Cancer would be like the intuitive, sensitive part of us. It also feels like it's the part that gets a workout. And I'm kind of satisfied to leave it there, honestly. Yeah, Will's a game changer. And again, I feel like Will, I don't know, there's just like it's so I feel like there are aspects of it that I'm like getting impressions of that I don't necessarily know how to communicate. But I think also at the same time, you know, let's click the shuffle deck button. And so let's see. Is it you? Maybe. Maybe. Yeah. Let's put it here because I don't think that's going to cut anything off. Cool. All right. Let's get one card. Hit the shuffle. The Five of Swords. We actually saw the Five of Swords. It was the bell, maybe? It doesn't matter. The Five of Swords. Like, I, mm, I feel like the Five of Swords is will. That like that domineering, crushing, absolute, total victory. Five of Swords can be a card of Pyrrhic victories, and I learned that word through some book or another. I think a Pyrrhic victory is one where it's like even if you win, it's like you lose just as much as you win, if not more. It's like, congratulations, you are the ruler of a desolate wasteland. But at least it's yours, I guess. But I feel like it is this sort of unstoppable. It's like it dominates everything else. And it speaks to, like, when it was about currency, like when it was platinum, it's just so, like, densely, because it was will that created everything. It was will that created everything of a divine flavor, but nevertheless it was will. And so that's almost like how, and with that three of pentacles and things that just like come in and sort of like assist things going in that direction. It doesn't matter what circumstances, situation, it doesn't matter like what reality is or looks like. If you have a strong enough will, and if that, it's like a ticket is like validated or valid, anything can change and happen. Like, you could say that, because the person in the foreground is will, and the two in the background could be like will slash spiritual. The two in the background could be physical and like emotional, mental, more so mental. Beyond thoughts and beyond things, there is will. And it can accomplish things in miraculous ways. Miraculous and mysterious. That's why it's magic. Right? That three of pentacles and the empress yesterday, giving that energy of like synchronicity, fated encounters, things that you would have never thought would happen or could happen, and then they happen. Right? I want to get one more. Uno más, please. Prophetic dreams, inspired action, tapping into the other side. And I'm a lady here. What's that? The high priestess, Gemini, the crown, the solar plexus, and the element of water. Ooh, I feel like I ain't looked at this in a minute. I want to say this is a planet. Maybe. Maybe. Oops. I'm like, excuse me? Where's my OneNote? Oh, no. I thought I had it on this phone. It's on my computer. What the world? LMNOPQRSTUV WXYNZ. Do 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 do. Sorry. Apparently I'm singing the ABCs. Okay. This is Pisces. It's Pisces. My brain said Pluto. The resource says Pisces. So Pisces, the high priestess. We get Cancer in the high priestess, Pisces in the high priestess. We saw Pisces and Cancer flanking the Queen of Wands, that was the practitioner of magic. It was the Chariot and the Hangman. Pisces, the high priestess, Gemini. Did I say the crowd? Yeah, no, the third eye. Sorry. Third eye, solar plexus, and the element of water. What I love about Pisces and the High Priestess, it's almost like Pisces, the High Priestess, and the third eye is sense, perception. The solar plexus is the anchor or the weight of one's will. And then Gemini is kind of like Gemini and water both have this. I guess Gemini is more transactional, water is more of the flow, right? So that Gemini energy handles the transition of everything that needs to occur in order for that will to sort of be carried out. And then the water element is just, you could say, the fluidity or smoothness, the principle upon which a system is built, right? Which can be, it's like if that Gemini energy is trade and commerce, then the energy of water is the waterways through which the ships travel, through which those goods move, through which that trade and commerce is possible in the first place. But it's the sense of Pisces. It's almost like this will sense where it's like it sees it. It sees it in the spiritual before it becomes a thing. It's almost like if I've like in Pocopia is one game. I feel like in a lot of games, even like Animal Crossing, in a lot of games when you're like moving things, it's like when you can see the thing or where the thing is before you put it down. It's like if you were to go on Amazon or something and you use like the AR camera to see what it would look like for the desk that you're looking at, like what it would look like in real life. It's like it's that projected image of the thing in its place before the thing is physically there. And if you can see it, then of course it makes the alignment between like the thoughts and the determination a lot easier too. Right? If you can trust in a thing that your faith is expansive enough to encapsulate, it's a lot easier than trusting in something that you don't even know how it can be done. And it's not that you necessarily need it, but I almost wonder too if it's as it all works together, if it's a development of a sense of things that your will can change, right? There's trust in the divine will, trust in the divine and the extension of the divine through its will to do certain things. But if it's like developing a sense in which you can trust your own will, and you trusting your own will can look as simple as like there's something that's coming up and you don't know how you're going to do whatever, but you've done worse before and the divine has seen you through worse. So you know you'll be able to hold out. You know that the divine is going to have like you know everything is going to come together and you're not worried about it. And certainly things end up working out. But it's like it's the sense to see like this could change. Right. Tapping onto the other side, obviously. Yeah, cool. So, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, do I get a final card? I feel like, yeah, we're not going to take this to the hour and a half hour mark. I think we're pretty good, honestly. I almost wonder. There's something about the line prophetic dreams, but I guess it isn't much different than a download. Or you know how sometimes the divine just like some people will be like, oh, God like told me to tell you this, and then, they tell you whatever. Or maybe you yourself have been divinely inspired to do something, and then you do it. For some reason, prophetic dreams, instead of it reading like you receiving a dream about something that is happening, it's almost coming across like a request, like the divine asking you to use your will or to extend your will. Again, it's like that collaboration. Before, there was like an undertone of the divine working to make something that you will come to pass, because what you will and what the divine wills, they align. And so it's like you get to tap into those divine resources to help do stuff. But it almost feels like it's the other side of that collaboration, where the divine may be asking you to step in and do something in whatever way. Cool. All right. All right. All right. All right. I'm gonna close this one first. I'm not gonna. Well, I will. Excuse me. I said I wasn't, but I will. I said I wasn't, but I will. I guess I will. I said I wasn't, but I will. I guess I will. I wanted to go like, obviously Anwilla and the La Fruma Raw rooms came to mind. I was like, I can pull before and after Anwilla. It's willful resistance, but I think I was on like a chalk at some point, and like it came out as like will. Now, willful resistance, I guess there are different flavors of will, right? Because in the willful resistance, that's the Gandalf the Gray question mark before he became Gandalf the White question mark, where he told the Balrog, "You shall not pass." That's like a flavor of will that stops something from happening. So rather than it being like creative or generative, where it's like there's something that is willed and then things conspire to make that willed thing be come to pass, it's like it stops something, right? If someone's like, I am going to eat your cake, and you're like, no, you will not. My cake is my cake, and it is for me to eat. I am Will Shield. Boom. Egeshalmer. It's like, no, no. And then generative will is like, man, I could really go for a nice, thick, juicy stalk of celery, and you're on a walk, and then someone's like, hand you some celery. It's like there's a will to stop something, and then there's a will to create something. And I feel like the more that I think about it, the more I'm like, okay. Anyway, y'all hear that? I feel like it's coming the other direction, because I heard that one before I saw it. Do trains move both sides on the? If there are multiple tracks, then yes. See, it sounds like a truck like pulling into the driveway. Anyway, sorry. No problem. There it is. Yeah, so it does go both ways. I was like, I heard it before I saw it that time. I wonder if it's like good insulation on the windows or something. Because I feel like to be this close to the tracks, usually it would be like when the train comes, it would sound a lot more than, oh, it sounds like a truck pulling into a driveway. Anyway, all right. 513, final card. Wait, is today? It's 456 in the day, month, year, right? It's the 13th, which is a 4, of May, which is a 5, 20. No, it's a 10. Why did I think that 2026? Maybe it was just the 6 in 2026. Anyway, all right, let's go. Let's go. Boom. Null, null, Aries, solar plexus, third eye, null. Oh my gosh. Solar plexus, and third eye. But this is the flip of how we saw it on the card. On the card, it was third eye and then solar plexus. Here, it's solar plexus and then third eye. And instead of Gemini, we have Aries, but we also saw Pisces. Excuse me. Um, let's see. Okay. All right. Let's shuffle the deck first. Maybe this is one of those. Take it as it resonates. What does Aries, solar plexus, and third eye mean to you? The magician. Of course, it's the magician. Why would it be anything but the magician? Let me change this for ya so you can see the magician. So with Aries, the solar plexus and the third eye, it was like a switch again on that polarity because before it was third eye and then the solar plexus. Here it's the solar plexus and the third eye. As it originally came out and as I originally saw it and read it, it was seeing where something is going to go before it goes there. But this is like, okay, I got 2 minutes. It's like, if okay, all right. So there was the energy of will is a muscle, right? It's building a muscle, it's creating endurance. And oh, okay. There was it was the wall, right? The defensive will versus like I guess this is more of the generative will. You could this take it as it resonates. If it resonate, take it as it resonate when it resonate. If it resonate, if it don't resonate, don't take it. My brain operates in metaphor. It's like I'm seeing it like it's like it's what I would imagine as an advanced application of generative will. And we did see so when we saw Aries, it was with it ended in judgment. It was Aries, the Ace of Souls, the Summit of Zones, and judgment with the High Priestess and the Star with Cancer. And that judgment of and that judgment and Cancer of someone becoming the star that they were always meant to be. And I guess Jesus did it, right? And he said, all of these things and more you can do. This reads like it's like instead of someone using that Pisces third eye energy to see how something could be changed by an application of will. And it's almost like instead of seeing like structural weak spots for something to be changed, it's this point where, but I guess that was the thing in the beginning. Someone's will is like doing something where it's almost like, but I feel like I guess that's the point. I don't know why I'm struggling with it because it feels like that was the point. Maybe it's well, yeah, magic and the magician. It's the magician. You could say it's like it's a master of will, someone whose will is so strong, or the application of their will is so strong that it's been like 3 minutes. We're over an hour and a half. It's it's fine. I got a little bit of water. Someone's mastery of their will is so strong that creation responds to it. And there are scales to everything. But that's what it reads like. Maybe not necessarily let there be light and then there was light. Maybe not that, but it reads like someone's will. Because I feel like before, with the Three of Pentacles especially, it was like this almost automatic and autonomous process. There's a priority here. So, with the example of the bar, at this point, you approaching the bar immediately grabs the bartender's attention. Like the bartender doesn't even necessarily have to be looking at you, but the bartender intuitively knows, or the bartender can feel this magician energy approaching the bar. And it's like being a priority customer. You don't have to wave, you don't have to shout, you don't have to like it's being given some kind of priority. And then the magician card came out because I'm like, how do you what? And then the magician card came out. And just like the chariot wasn't hold no reins on them sphinxes, this magician ain't touching any one of these um implements, tools. It's not touching the sword, the pentacle, the cup, or the wand. It has its little stick and it's doing its little magic, maybe that infinity above his head and the light. And see, look, it even has the light coming out of the head. It has that infinity sign and the soul star and the light show. It wills it and the things just move. I don't know. Cool. All right. So thanks, Holly and Kirsty, for stopping by. Excuse me. I hope y'all have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and way you find. And yeah, take it as it resonates. If it resonates, when it resonates, and if it don't resonate, don't take it. I don't know. I'm just like I'm kind of like whoa, but not really. But I am. I feel like Because it's almost like it seems so grand, visually grand. But at the same time, it's like what would have been the point if anything but this were the outcome? It's almost like this was always going to happen, right? It's almost like for like again, like if you're training for a marathon or something and you train well, it's like running record time or something. And then you may be surprised that you like finished as strong as you did, or you may be surprised that it wasn't as hard as you thought it might be. And it's like, well, yeah, because you've been training for this for a while. So of course that's why it feels easy, or that's why you finished a lot faster than you thought you would finish. It's because you've been training for this. You've been preparing for this. Like this was the reason for whatever. And so why be surprised when this is the outcome type energy? So with that, I will catch y'all's later.